Find her. But keep it quiet.
Okay, quick question. Have you noticed Netflix quietly dropping some really intense movies this year?
Iedereen op de grond.
Hey, I'm Jenny, and today we're counting down the top 10 Netflix movies of 2025 so far. These are the sci-fi, action, and thriller movies that don't mess around, high stakes, dark tension, and stories that pull you in and don't let go.
Took your freaking time, didn't you?
Cool your jets.
Let's go.
Every movie on this list was released in 2025, and each one brings something different, from claustrophobic thrillers and brutal action, to big sci-fi ideas and slow-burn psychological tension. So if you're looking for something gripping, serious, and absolutely worth your time, you're in the right place. Let's start the countdown.
時速100キロ以下で爆発?
At number 10, we're starting with a movie that wastes absolutely no time putting you on edge, Bullet Train Explosion. The premise is simple and terrifying. A high-speed bullet train is rigged with an explosive device that will detonate the moment the train slows down. No stops. No delays. No mistakes. As passengers slowly realize what's happening, panic spreads fast. Authorities scramble to figure out who's behind it, why this train was chosen, and how to stop an explosion that could wipe out everyone on board. But every solution comes with a brutal catch, because saving lives might mean risking them first. What makes Bullet Train Explosion so intense is its confinement. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and no room to breathe. The train itself becomes a pressure cooker, where every conversation feels urgent and every second counts. The movie leans hard into real-time tension. Decisions have immediate consequences. Small errors turn into massive threats. And the constant forward motion creates this relentless feeling that disaster is always just seconds away. There's no humor to soften the blows, no unnecessary side plots, just escalating danger, rising fear, and the question hanging over every scene: how long can this really last? It's not trying to reinvent the genre, it's trying to make your palms sweat. And it succeeds. A sharp, fast-paced action thriller that kicks off this countdown by throwing you straight into survival mode.
Iedereen op de grond.
At number 9, we're going with a thriller that proves you don't need explosions or massive set pieces to be absolutely nerve-wracking, iHostage. This movie drops you into a hostage situation that feels uncomfortably real. One confined location, limited time, and a standoff where every word spoken could either save a life or end one. As negotiations unfold, the tension doesn't come from action, it comes from psychology. Who's really in control? Who's bluffing? And how long can everyone involved keep pretending they're calm when fear is clearly running the room? What makes iHostage so effective is how stripped down it is. The camera stays close. Silences last just a little too long. And every glance, pause, and raised voice feels loaded with meaning. You're constantly waiting for the moment when everything finally snaps. The movie also plays with perspective, showing how the same crisis feels completely different depending on which side of the door you're on. Inside, panic is building. Outside, decisions are being made that could change everything in seconds. There's no room for hero moments here. Just pressure, desperation, and the slow realization that there may not be a clean way out of this situation. iHostage is the kind of thriller that makes you lean forward without realizing it, heart rate up, jaw tight, waiting for the next move. A tense, grounded entry that earns its place at number 9.
Find her. But keep it quiet.
At number 8, we have a fast-moving thriller that thrives on the feeling of being trapped in the wrong place with absolutely no protection, Exterritorial. The story kicks off when an ordinary situation turns dangerous inside a foreign embassy. What should be a safe zone instantly becomes a maze of hidden rules, restricted authority, and people who can't be trusted. And once things go wrong, there's no clear way out. What makes Exterritorial so tense is its core idea: when you're inside exterritorial ground, normal laws don't apply. Help can't just rush in. Jurisdiction is blurred. And every move has political consequences. The movie leans heavily into paranoia. Characters don't know who's watching, who's lying, or who's already made a deal behind closed doors. Conversations feel like negotiations. Hallways feel like traps. And silence often feels more dangerous than noise. Action here isn't flashy, it's urgent and desperate. Fights are messy, escapes are barely pulled off, and every attempt to survive feels like it could collapse at any moment. As the At number 7, we're stepping into a city that feels completely broken, and a man who's about to make it much worse, Havoc. This is a raw, no-frills action thriller that drops you straight into a world of corruption, crime, and violence with no safety net. When a deal goes wrong, a hardened detective is forced to fight his way through the criminal underworld to rescue a missing person tied to powerful and dangerous people. What makes Havoc stand out is how brutal and grounded it feels. The action isn't flashy or stylized, it's chaotic, exhausting, and painful. Every punch lands hard. Every chase feels desperate. And survival always comes at a cost. The city itself feels like an enemy. Dark alleys, overcrowded streets, and decaying buildings create a constant sense of threat. There's no backup coming, no clean solution, just one bad decision after another piling up fast. As the story unfolds, the movie becomes less about justice and more about consequences. Loyalties crumble, lines get crossed, and the deeper the main character goes, the harder it becomes to tell whether he's trying to fix the damage or simply burn everything down. Havoc doesn't give you time to breathe. It keeps pushing forward with relentless momentum, daring you to keep up as the violence escalates and the stakes spiral out of control. It's intense, unforgiving, and unapologetically dark, exactly the kind of action thriller that earns its place at number 7. At number 6, we're returning to a world that never really recovered, 28 years later. This movie isn't about the initial outbreak anymore. It's about what happens long after the panic fades, when survival has reshaped humanity into something colder, harder, and far more dangerous. Decades after the original catastrophe, society hasn't rebuilt, it's adapted. Communities are isolated. Trust is rare. And the line between the infected and the survivors feels thinner than ever. Danger doesn't always come from monsters, sometimes it comes from people who've learned how to live without mercy. What makes 28 years later so unsettling is its atmosphere. There's a constant sense of dread hanging over every scene. Empty landscapes feel watched. Silence feels intentional. And the fear isn't loud, it's patient. The movie leans into psychological tension just as much as physical threat. Characters aren't just fighting to stay alive, they're fighting to hold on to whatever humanity they have left. Every choice carries weight, and every mistake feels irreversible. When violence does erupt, it's sudden and brutal. There's no warning, no build-up, just chaos that reminds you how fragile survival really is in this world. 28 years later isn't just a continuation, it's a reflection on endurance, trauma, and what time does to people when hope becomes a luxury. Dark, tense, and deeply uncomfortable, this one earns the number 6 spot by proving that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that refuse to end.
Everyone thinks I did it. I didn't do it.
At number 5, we have a mystery thriller that goes darker, heavier, and far more dangerous than you might expect. Wake Up Dead Man, a knives-out mystery. This time, the story strips away any sense of comfort. When a death occurs under suspicious circumstances, the investigation pulls everyone involved into a web of secrets that no one wants exposed. And the deeper it goes, the clearer it becomes. Someone is willing to do anything to keep the truth buried. What makes this entry stand out is its tone. It's quieter, moodier, and far more unsettling. Conversations feel loaded. Every character seems to be hiding something. And even moments of calm feel temporary, like the ground could shift at any second. The tension doesn't come from action, but from anticipation. Each clue raises new questions instead of answers. Trust erodes quickly. And the mystery slowly transforms into something much more personal and dangerous. As the pieces start to fall into place, the film reveals how fragile morality really is when reputations, power, and survival are on the line. By the final act, the truth feels less like a solution, and more like a threat. Wake Up Dead Man is the kind of thriller that keeps you guessing without ever letting you relax. It's controlled, deliberate, and quietly intense, making it a perfect midpoint for this countdown. A sharp, tension-filled mystery that earns the number 5 spot.
Took your freaking time, didn't you?
Cool your jets.
At number 4, we're stepping into a future that looks strangely familiar and deeply broken, the Electric State. Set in an alternate, retrofuturistic version of America, This movie follows a young woman traveling across a decaying landscape where once helpful machines now sit abandoned like ghosts of a failed promise. Technology didn't just stop working here, it left scars. What makes the electric state so compelling is its mood. The world feels empty but not quiet. Every location tells a story of dependence, collapse, and loss. Giant mechanical remnants loom in the background, reminding you that progress came at a cost no one was ready to pay. The tension isn't loud or chaotic, it's emotional. As the journey unfolds, the film slowly reveals how humanity handed over control, trusted too much, and paid the price. And the farther the characters travel, the harder it becomes to tell whether the machines were the problem, or just a reflection of us. There's a constant sense of unease beneath the visuals. Not because something is always happening, but because something already happened, and the damage can't be undone. Hope exists here, but it's fragile, and it never comes without consequences. When the story reaches its most powerful moments, it doesn't rely on action, it relies on realization. The understanding that this world didn't collapse overnight, it eroded slowly, while everyone was distracted. The electric state is thoughtful, haunting, and quietly intense, the kind of sci-fi thriller that stays with you long after it ends. A powerful entry that earns the number 4 spot.
Until you mind.
At number 3, we have a story that's been told many times, but never quite like this, Frankenstein. This isn't a fast, explosive sci-fi movie. It's slow, heavy, and deeply unsettling. The kind of film that lets discomfort sink in and refuses to rush past it. At its core, this version of Frankenstein focuses on obsession. Not just the act of creating life, but the arrogance behind believing you should. As the line between scientific ambition and moral responsibility begins to blur, the consequences become impossible to ignore. What makes this film so intense is how personal it feels. The horror doesn't come from jump scares or monsters lurking in the dark, it comes from watching a creation slowly realize what it is, and why it was never meant to exist. Silence lingers. Emotions fester. And every moment feels weighted with regret. The atmosphere is thick and oppressive, shadows dominate the frame, conversations feel confessional, and the world itself seems to recoil from what's been done. You're not just watching events unfold, you're sitting with the guilt, the fear, and the irreversible damage. As the story builds, the tension shifts inward. The real battle isn't between creator and creation, it's between responsibility and denial. And when that conflict finally boils over, the payoff is devastating rather than explosive. Frankenstein is a sci-fi thriller that asks uncomfortable questions and doesn't offer easy answers. It's haunting, tragic, and deeply human in the worst and best ways. A powerful, unsettling entry that earns the number 3 spot.
We are talking about hitting a bullet with a bullet.
So it's a fucking coin toss? That's what $50 billion buys us?
At number 2, we have a thriller that doesn't rely on action to make your heart race, A House of Dynamite. This movie is built entirely on pressure. When a credible nuclear threat emerges, the story locks you inside rooms where decisions are made in whispers, and every word could carry catastrophic consequences. There are no easy heroes here. Just officials, experts, and leaders forced to choose between options that all feel wrong. Time is limited. Information is incomplete. And the weight of millions of lives hangs over every conversation. What makes A House of Dynamite so gripping is how restrained it is. The tension comes from pauses, glances, and moments where no one wants to be the person who speaks next. You feel the clock ticking even when nothing is happening. The film leans into moral anxiety rather than spectacle. It asks what happens when power meets uncertainty, and whether humanity is actually capable of handling the weapons it's created. The fear isn't loud or chaotic, it's cold and suffocating. As the situation escalates, the movie never gives you relief. It just tightens the pressure, forcing characters, and the audience, to sit with the consequences of their choices. A House of Dynamite is intense because it feels possible. Uncomfortably possible. A smart, controlled, and deeply unsettling thriller that earns the number 2 spot.
Waits with bated breath.
And finally, at number 1, we have a thriller that turns isolation into its greatest weapon, The Woman in Cabin 10. This story follows a journalist on assignment aboard a luxury ship, where everything looks calm, polished, and completely under control. Until one night, she's certain she witnesses a murder in the cabin next door. There's just one problem. When she reports it, no one believes her. The cabin is empty. The passenger never existed. And suddenly, the safest place she could imagine becomes a floating trap. What makes The Woman in Cabin 10 so effective is how quickly certainty turns into doubt. The more she pushes for answers, the more isolated she becomes. Crew members smile but reveal nothing. Passengers dismiss her concerns. And the line between truth and paranoia starts to blur. The tension comes from that uncertainty. Are you watching someone uncover a real conspiracy, or someone slowly losing her grip on reality? Every hallway feels watched. Every knock feels threatening. And escape is impossible when you're surrounded by water. As the story unfolds, the movie tightens its grip, secrets surface, motives collide, and the danger becomes impossible to ignore. By the final act, survival depends not just on being right, but on being believed. The Woman in Cabin 10 is the kind of thriller that gets under your skin because it feels plausible. Being trapped, being ignored, knowing something is wrong, and having no proof. A tense, claustrophobic, and deeply unsettling experience that earns the #1 spot on this list. Alright, so those were the top 10 Netflix movies of 2025 so far, all tension, no fluff. Whether you're in the mood for claustrophobic thrillers, heavy sci-fi ideas, or slow burn stories that quietly mess with your head, there's definitely something on this list worth pressing play on tonight. If you enjoyed hanging out and talking movies with me, make sure you're subscribed to Watch with Jenny. This channel is all about finding the good stuff, breaking it down calmly, and enjoying movies the way we're supposed to, without overthinking it. Let me know in the comments which one you're watching first, and which one you're saving for when you're not home alone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, with more movies that are probably way more intense than we expect them to be.